And we have, from right to left, we have Tom Chatham. Tom is a guest on American News. In fact, all three of these individuals I've worked with for years, either through professional relationships or coming on the podcast American Dreams. And Tom was one that his family, his dad, started the process. He's an alchemist, recreating how gems are made. So he brought to the interview, he brought a big rock. It was like an uncut ruby or spinel, red spinel or something. But that was a ruby, yeah, uncut. So, but he runs the family business is Chatham, Gems by Chatham, and he's going to tell about his story there. We have Terry Ryan in the middle, and Terry has a movie, award-winning movie that's going to be released. I'm not going to. She'll talk more about this, but it's really exciting the way that they're building the legacy there. And then we have Ken. Ken is going to talk about his family legacy and his current venture, Utopia. Ken's one of our sponsors here today, and we're really grateful to have them here today. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Jacqueline Hernandez, and this will be done in an interview format.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alan. All right, everybody's coming back from break. Thank you very much. Now, as we get started, again, I would like to give them each 90 seconds to give us a brief introduction about yourselves.
Starting with me?
Starting with you. Thank you, Tom.
That's going to be tough. Our company is 89 years old. My father started it back in 1935. He was a chemist extraordinaire, Caltech graduate, PhD. But even before that, he was growing emeralds in his father's garage in San Francisco. And he is a pioneer in this particular field. He was the first individual to ever successfully commercially grow emerald. And that's where he got his start. I joined him in 1965, and together we produced the first rubies of a certain type that is identical to natural. And that led us into all the different colored sapphires and alexandrite and diamonds. That was my father's real passion, was to try and grow diamonds, and unfortunately he passed away before that was possible. But I accomplished it. I did this work all over the world. Well, to back up a little bit, after joining my father in 1965, after college, and I soon found out that I wasted 2 years of college in chemistry because my father was so bright, so good. I should have gone into marketing. But what I did for him, and for myself, of course, I saw the problems in the company. He operated like a mine, made all this rough material of emerald and sold it to one individual, payment in advance. And to some people, you would think that would be a dream come true, until I came in and said, "Dad, this looks suicidal. What happens if something happens to this guy? Where are stones sold? Where do they cut them? Where do they go?" And he gave me a lot of room. He says, "Well, if you're interested in researching what we do and how we do it, go ahead." And I did. And I started traveling around the world, finding the cutting centers that would help us. I went to Idar Oberstein, Germany, very well known for cutting gemstones, but then they turned out to be too expensive in the long run. And then I started an operation in South Korea, cutting gemstones. From South Korea, I went to Taiwan. And then when Taiwan got too hot, I went to Hong Kong. Then I went into Bangkok, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and China. And right now in China, we have about 350 people cutting our gemstones. All of this was was chasing the dollar, the value of the dollar around the world. How these operations didn't work simultaneously. There was one after the other. And in doing these travels, I bumped into other crystal growers. And I found out the value of joint ventures and in helping others get what they wanted to do. But they either lacked the technology, the capital, or the marketing know-how. And we had a big advantage being in the US and being the first in the world. My father got a lot of free press. I mean, hundreds of articles, National Geographic, on television, programs called like You Asked For It and What's My Line, and they were pretty corny, but they got the word out about what Chatham is. And that kind of turned into my life's work in giving hundreds of presentations around the world, talking to gemologists. Nearby here, the Gemological Institute of America, based in Carlsbad, California. I talked to every student every 6 months for 30 years, giving them my version of what we do in the laboratories and making sure they understood that, this is not a fake stone. This is something to be reckoned with. And to help them, I donated thousands of stones around the world to laboratories to better understand the distinction of a naturally occurring gemstone and ours. Any mine stone can be identified from the mine that it came from if you make the effort to do so. So today I'm no longer the CEO of the company. I'm the chairman of the board, which means I don't have to go to work anymore. But I do things like this. I'm politically involved all over the world with problems that have resurfaced over nomenclature, what we call our stones, the advent of the diamond, which is a huge, huge business today in lab-created diamonds. It is over half the sales today in bridal, which gives people like De Beers a bit of a headache. And that's who I'm up against. And that's what I do.
Thank you so much, Tom. Terry, can you lead the way?
Yes, okay. Is this on?
Yes, it's on.
All right, I'm Terry Ryan. I married my Cornell classmate and put him through graduate school in mathematics and the new field of computer science. Then he put me through law school, and I joined a 250 attorney law firm in San Francisco. Rob went down to Silicon Valley to find his fortune. He became Intel's Engineer of the Year in 1982 because he wrote the IEEE specification that made Ethernet an industry standard. I then transferred down to a Silicon Valley firm, a company, so I was in-house. And my husband was recruited by a startup to be their vice president of engineering. But he got crosswise of the founder of that company and was fired one day short of vesting in his stock, and then blackballed in Silicon Valley. Wow. Couldn't find a job. So that forced him to start his own company. Now, I had, among other divisions, been counseling the finance and the personnel division in the company I worked for, so that put me in a good position to be able to assist my husband in his first company. And we sold that one to Hayes Microcomputer, which was the individual modem company at the time. Then we went on to start a company called Ascend Communications, which did live up to its name eventually, but not until we had several major setbacks. So that company went public on Friday the 13th, May 13th, at $13 a share in 1994. My husband was Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Silicon Valley in 1995. The stock split several times. And then on April Fool's Day, In 1999, it was sold for $24 billion to Lucent, and that number held the record for a venture-backed company in Silicon Valley for more than 20 years.
Thank you so much. Did everybody catch that here?
Wow.
Thank you. Please give Terry a round of applause. Yes. Okay. Ken, take it away.
All right. So I got a curious question for you. I'm supposed to introduce myself. I'm going to do that in a unique way. So I want you to take a second and think about this question and find your own answers for it. Okay? What is the most powerful force on the planet today? What's the most powerful force on the planet today? Nuclear, biological, money, position, title, politics? Love. Absolutely. Love for all of mankind's history has been the most powerful force on the planet. All of our history. All the generations, all of everything. And there's another unique characteristic about love that I want us all to appreciate, because I'm going to talk about how that all works in a second. We all have an unlimited supply of it. And we can talk about investing. I'm an MBA from some of the top schools and an engineer of the top schools and making money and all that kind of stuff, right? That's where we focus our time. But we all have an unlimited supply of love. You go back in America's history and think about the first 137 universities that were built. Who built them? A venture capital firm? No. Private equity firm? No. Love. People like you and I coming together in situations just like Alan's hosted here in his great GrowCo organization, coming together and saying, how can we make a difference in this world? Right? What is it we can do collectively that we probably couldn't do individually? And hence you see universities, you see hospitals, you see the infrastructure of our whole nation, our Constitution. If you trace all the people, you'll find that it was all built on love. It was people literally putting their lives into making a difference, not what's in it for me, right? We live in a society today that's highly driven for what's in it for me. But there's unique individuals on the planet about what's in it for others. What can I do for others? So as you get to know me a little bit, you guys, we can talk about education, we can talk about accomplishments, we can talk about being one of the top builders and developers in the country in my history, all kinds of things, $5 billion worth of business, raising $4 billion worth of capital. The list of accolades goes on. Malcolm Baldrige Award twice with my company in an equivalent basis in the housing industry, right? But I got to tell you, there was one award along the way that struck me one day that was very unique and just emulates love. So I walk in our office, this is back in 2003, and our vice president of university and learning walks up to me and said, "You won." And I said, "I won what?" He said, "You were just selected as one of the best 11 CEOs in the world for developing people." I said, "How did that happen?" He said, "You are. You just don't realize it." He said, "We've been top in industry for 2 years in a row in developing people across the entire construction industry in the world." And he said, "It's because of your passion about developing people." And honestly, for me, it felt strange because I thought that's what everybody was supposed to do. I thought our role in life as leaders is develop others, produce excellent results, whether it's our kids, whether it's our family, whether it's our friends. It's to love on them and lift them up from wherever they are to a greater place, right? So that's what my life's about. I'm blessed with an amazing wife sitting over there who's, if you ask me out in the hallway, I'll tell you she's my better 80%. I'm still a little bit, but she's amazing. We have a beautiful family, 5 kids, 4 of them married, 12 grandkids. We're just blessed with our most recent one. And into a number of different projects at lunch. During your lunch today, I'm going to share with you what I believe will be one of the 10 biggest transformations in all of mankind's history, all brought to you out of love. And will change every one of your lives and of your loved ones and your other loved ones. So we're about to go through a bigger transformation than AI. It makes AI look like it's nothing. You will appreciate it because you're doing something else that's in stealth mode. I don't know what it is, but you sound like you got something else really cool going on. So anyway, so very excited to be here with you guys. Hopefully we can come together and find great things to do across everything. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. All right, let's get this started. Now, my first question to you all is, why should people care about legacy and leaving a legacy? And we'll start with you, Terry. You can kick that one off.
I think one of the former speakers really spoke to this issue, and that is, what can you give rather than what do you get? So we have put now our whole system of developing businesses into our foundation, and all we want to do is spread it for free.
Thank you so much. Tom, do you want to?
Yes, I've thought about this legacy for a long time. I actually, and I didn't hold it up, but I even wrote a book on it. It's called The Legacy of Chatham. I'm the oldest crystal grower in the world from a family of crystal growers. And I wrote this book because some of my other competitors that I know around the world that have come and gone, good products, but they fell by the wayside and nobody recorded what they did. And I thought I owed it to the industry and my father to write about his history and about my history and what I've done with my life. I don't know how it's going to come out, how this legacy is going to come out. I know my father's legacy is there for sure. Any gemstone enthusiast in the world will know my father's name. So I definitely enjoy, the umbrella of that legacy of what my father created.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tom. How about you, Ken?
So how many of you have a legacy today? Every one of you do. Every person on the planet has a legacy. What we do every day is our legacy, right? What we pour ourselves into every day. So you don't have a choice of whether you want a legacy or not. You got one. The question is whether you want a good legacy. And if there is a good legacy, what is that going to be, right? And I think it's essential for every person in this room to define what you want your legacy to be. It's really essentially important because you're living it every day. You're emulating who you are every day, right? So for me, as I thought about this, not just for this, but I've been there for years and have gone through a number of different things. We built a really big home building company. We were number 31 in the country, top performer across every aspect, financially and otherwise. And then 2008 comes along. 5,500 people working for us. 2008 comes along, 90% of the builders and developers got wiped out, including us. 5,500 people without jobs, right? Lived through losing $171 million like that. Things change. What's your legacy? So through the years and through the different situations, I had to say, who is it I want to be and what do I want to be known for today and forever? And for me, that comes from Scripture. I'm not that creative when it comes for stuff. And a man after God's own heart, King David. That's my legacy statement. That's what I want to be known for. I want to live my life in such a way every day that I'm known for a man after God's own heart. I follow that up by a purpose statement because legacy doesn't give you the definition inside of itself exactly. So I also have a purpose statement that I use every day to make decisions. And this is as much about time management as anything else because we all face lots of opportunities, lots of decisions, lots of people in our life. There's not a person in this room that doesn't have endless possibilities and capabilities. So you've got to have a filtering tool. Legacy is one of them, and for me, purpose is another. My only purpose, every decision I have, is not to make Ken Newman look good. I could care less about that. I just want to get to heaven and hear God say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And so every decision I make comes from that legacy and that purpose and guides my life. And that's who I want to be known for. That's who I am. And I want you to experience me that way because that's who I am. And I just encourage you to focus on that and ask yourself what yours is.
Thank you for sharing. And, to your point of that's what you want, that's the legacy you want to be known for. Terry, I know you guys are doing a legacy film and you're getting the word out. What do you guys want to be known for, and what does that legacy look like for you?
We want, our purpose now is to spread my husband's system of how you build your own business. His system is very simple, but effective. And it gives people the tools and the confidence to do their own business. It's also a very collaborative system that gets people on the same page. And I've learned as a member of the Hoover Institution Board of Overseers that it is free enterprise that has lifted more than half of the world's dire poor out of poverty in the last 30 years. Not socialism, not the foreign aid. It's capitalism. We want to spread this prosperity.
Thank you so much. And Tom, you and your father had faced the FTC challenges. What legacy do you want to leave in regards to what your father had started?
Yes, in the late 50s, as you would imagine, the natural gem trade was not very appreciative of my father's work. And I can't really blame them. They were afraid of what happened with cultured pearls, natural pearls, back in 1915 when Mikimoto invented his process. It totally destroyed the value of natural pearls, even though they were in such short supply that nobody could afford them. But the cultured pearl really took over the world. And I believe my competitors, natural stone competitors, were fearful for what my father might do to their businesses. It hasn't happened. Natural gemstones and diamonds have never sold for more than they are today. But people had friends in high places, and the FTC called my father in, which is what they do. They wanted him to explain what he was doing and how he could call his stones cultured, emerald, and not synthetic. My father abhorred the word synthetic. It doesn't apply to what we do. And there are so many misconceptions of what the word synthetic is. Synthetic oil has got no comparison to natural, synthetic rubber, nylon, all of these things that we're all familiar with outside of the gemological world are not the same as natural, so we refuse to use it. The FTC doesn't tell you what to do. They ask you to prove what you're doing is true. And that court fight took 3 years and a lot out of my father, and we prevailed. They could not force him to use the word synthetic, but he refused to tell them how he was growing emerald, and that's what they wanted to know. And I guess I got a lot of that from him. He just refused, and the judge in the FTC trial said, Mr. Chatham, if you refuse to answer the question, it's 1 year in jail, $5,000 a day fine for contempt of court. And my father said, you put me away right now. I'm not going to tell you anything. A long silence, and I was not there. I was only 16 at the time, but I've gone over the transcripts again and again and again, and a lot of it's in my book. But after about 10 minutes, the judge says, okay, attorneys in my chambers, along with Carol Chatham. And the first thing the judge said is, I'm not going to put you in jail. He made a big legal mistake. You can't do that. He'd admit to that, but he couldn't do it. No, without due process of law. But what my father showed me, and I've learned from him, his examples, is persistence and a passion for what you believe in, and you stick to it. There's no wavering that goes on in what my message is to the world of gemstone growers or natural gemstone people that I'm fighting at this moment because of the huge success of the diamond, lab-grown diamond, is causing the demise of the natural diamond. And I've advised the natural diamond people to do a better job. They've never had a competitor like us, and they don't know what to do except attack. And we don't back down. I don't back down. So I think that was my father's legacy. He would refuse to back down, and mine as well.
Thank you so much, Tom. Now, as a third generation in your family, Tom, of building legacy, how were you encouraged at a younger age to take on the legacy and create more innovation through it?
Well, I know it's not uncommon for the third generation to not do so well. I found out that when you draft family members, it doesn't always work out well. And I drafted my brother. I have 3 children. I drafted my son and 2 daughters. My son worked for my brother in one of the laboratories, and I warned them all. I said, the other employees are not going to like you from the day you walk in the door. Do not play the boss's son or daughter game, because they'll hate you even worse. You have to work harder. You have to show up earlier. You have to prove yourself to these people that you've earned the right for this job. Well, my son got fired by my brother. I would not change it. I said, I'm sorry, you blew it.
He didn't prove himself then, huh?
Well, he didn't think he had to come to work. And that is one of the requirements. My youngest daughter, we had in our offices, and she was pretty wild and chased a military guy across the U.S. I said, what are you doing? You know, you're 21 years old, you know, you got a future ahead of you. What, chasing this boyfriend? Well, it didn't do any good. She never caught up with him, but she did catch up with the Air Force. And she spent 30 years in the Air Force and just recently retired as a master sergeant, as high as you can get, I believe, in a non-commissioned position. My third daughter has worked for me 35 years. But at about year 10, she told me, I love to work for you. I love the work, but do not think I'm going to take this business over. You were gone half my life on a plane somewhere, and I missed all of my children growing up, literally, and millions of miles doing what I thought I had to do. And I was thankful for her honesty, and we enjoy a great relationship, but my children will not be taking over the business.
Thank you so much for answering that. Ken, how about you? How are you encouraging your next generation to take on and move in your legacy?
So I've got a different answer for that question than you'll expect. So earlier in my career, so go back in the 80s and 90s, I started seeing families fall apart where their parents put kids into position of taking over businesses, mentored them, worked in them, and all that kind of stuff. And by the time we get to 2000, thereabouts, and making tens of millions of dollars a year and going, okay, so what do you do with all this? So I started talking to a lot of people, perhaps some of you, but lots of people that had kids and had dealt with different things and studied. I read 11 books on the subject. I'm going, how do you really do this well? And every book I read basically came to the conclusion that the worst thing money does is screw everybody up. It forces people into positions. It forces people to take over in companies. They get fired, and now they're family members, and that destroys families. And then, so we came to the conclusion through the years of we just weren't going to do that. We wanted to teach our kids to fish, and then inspire them to fish at what they were naturally really good at. Whether that had anything to do with what I loved doing or not didn't make any difference. We wanted them to be the best they can be at what they were naturally inclined to do. From an estate standpoint, we came to the conclusion that as an entrepreneur, we were given certain gifts and abilities, and we should be using those gifts and abilities for the betterment of mankind. And the idea that we're going to make all this money and then somehow pass it to another generation who didn't earn it, doesn't know what to do with it, and it's not what they wanted in the first place, didn't make a lot of sense to us. So I know that's very contrary in this room. I shared with you I have a few contrarian things. So what we did is we capped off what our kids get. When we started Utopia, which is 7 or 8 years ago, we wrote each one of them a personal letter. We said, here's the deal. We're giving you this amount of money now, helping them get into a house and those kind of things. But we're taking our wealth and pouring it back into mankind and going to try and make a big difference for you and others. Maybe you'll be inspired to join us along that way or not, but it's about your health and your well-being and your longevity. So you're going to be on the journey with us, whether or not. But do not count on an estate from us, right? We want our kids to grow and to be the best they can be. That doesn't mean we're not helping them and encouraging them and doing all kinds of things with them. It means we're not giving them a gold spoon and say, here it is, right? And we did that out of love and caring for them, because if you study the history, it's way in the high 90% of people with high net worths that pass lots of money on to their kids and then their grandkids. That totally screws up the family. So I have a very different strategy on that, and that's probably very contrary to a lot of people's thoughts in this room, but I thought I'd share it with you anyway.
Thank you so much. Now, Terry, this next question is for you. How has philanthropy served as a tool for you and your family?
Well, I was very fortunate in that I was mentored in philanthropy by Gordon Moore's wife, Betty Moore. I was out to lunch, she was a friend, and I was out to lunch with her one day in Hawaii, and I was whining that I had given $1 million to start a YMCA in Hamilton, Montana, and the whole thing had been frittered away with no result. And she told me how the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation had turned philanthropy on its ear by putting it on a more business-like structure, by demanding business plans from the nonprofits that they were going to give money to, by writing up very specifically what the money was going to go for, and by not giving all the money at once, but rather making measurables and milestones. Gordon Moore's favorite thing, if you've ever become friends with him, you knew it was all about measurables and milestones, and don't pass out the next parcel of money until that milestone has been met in a measurable way.
Thank you so much. Now, how about Ken? How has philanthropy changed your family, especially with Utopia and building your adventures through that?
Yeah, great question. So aligned with our legacy and our purpose, we make decisions. So, 25 years ago, I guess, set up a 501c3. Gina and I have 2 501c3s that have stated purposes. They're not ran by other people, they're ran by us, and they'll be ran by the generation after us. It's our way of training them on aligned purposes and values consistent with what we shared. So that's it. So we've poured money into like Pastoral Leadership Institute, mentored them. We realized across faith that a lot of times all of us look to our faith preacher or leader, and they don't really have great leadership skills, and yet we look for them. So that's a problem we started tackling 25 years ago, have made impact in over 30 different countries. It's impacted over tens of millions of people coming to faith. So it's about being aligned with who you are and what you're going to do with your philanthropic efforts. And Terry, I completely agree with you. What's the money going for? What's the measurable results? Time after time. We also mentor people, so we've done that. We just 4 years ago launched another organization called Multiply. Again, aligned with spreading God's word throughout the world. Utopia is a very major project. As I shared with you, and I'll share with you at lunch, it's very philanthropic in the way we just said, look, we're pouring our resources back into making a big difference for mankind. And thanks for an incredible companion in life, my bride. We're completely aligned on what we're doing with our wealth and trying to make a big difference for everybody.
Thank you so much. Ken, you talked about your plan for your family and how you sat down and discussed with them. Terry and Tom, what examples that you can give to our audience here today that you've learned from, in really building your legacy?
You want me to go first? You want Tom to go first?
Terry, you can go ahead.
All right. Well, my husband and I have taken the road less traveled. I was nagging him to write his second book. I was really on his case about it. And a friend that was visiting us from Tel Aviv overheard, and he said, "Oh, that's a worthless endeavor. Kids don't read anymore. They watch. If you want to impact them, you need to make a movie." And so he made a proposal to us to make a movie. His name is Ori, and he calls himself the storyteller. So he told the story of our lives in Silicon Valley, emphasizing the setbacks and how my husband's system that we call the Sunflower Code grew and developed because of these setbacks. And now he's made the movie, okay? The movie has been accepted by several of the film festivals. It will be premiered by a film festival in Hollywood called Dances with Films. And it's in the same theater that the Oscar Awards are given. It will be on June 28th. We've also won a gold medal with the film from the Houston Film Festival. And we've been accepted in Chicago Film Festival, New York City Film Festival, Manhattan Film Festival, among others. If we are lucky enough to get a distribution deal and make money on the film, all of that will go into our foundation and will be used for mentoring entrepreneurs with my husband's system. Now, in the past, we've mentored 3 companies that have made billion-dollar exits, several companies that have made hundreds of million-dollar exits. But then, almost by accident, we discovered that our system is equally effective for ma and pa businesses. So we're hoping that the film, and now this same man, Ori Yardeni, is building a website that will be a multimedia website that will have clips from the films and tell stories, and then you'll be able to push a link to get the actual content of how you do this. And we feel that that will go over bigger with the younger people than merely writing a book on the system.
Now, Terry, could you give us insight to what the title of your movie is called?
I have these brochures, so if anyone wants one, there's some on the table over there. It's called The Man Who Saved the Internet with a Sunflower. We call the system the Sunflower System. I could explain it in 10 minutes to anybody that's interested. And it's called that because the internet went through 3 phases where it almost went under, like a drowning man. The first one was there was a network that DARPA had built that was used for our defense, the Department of Defense. And a young first-year congressman named Al Gore, yes, it was Al, championed making this public. And it only passed Congress approval by 1 vote. So that was the first time that the internet almost failed. then it was such a complicated system. I can remember Dennis Hayes of Hayes Microsystems talking me through getting a document when we were signing the deal for him to buy our first company. It was the kludgiest 12-step program. It took a half an hour for him to explain to me how to get on and get this document off of the internet. So it was Sir Timothy, given an award for his accomplishment by the Queen of England, who developed the www system of URLs, which made it so much easier to get on and off. But then, in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, all of the internet service providers were failing because they came under the communications direction of the requirements, the regulations of the FTC. And the FTC had set their tariff, what they could charge, at exactly the same as what a long-distance phone call was, not taking into consideration that they had to have a personal modem in the back room for each and every phone call coming in. And because of that requirement, they were unable to make any money. I don't know if y'all remember these days when AOL advertised on television unlimited internet access for $14.99 a month. That was the tariff set by the FTC. And AOL got sued by 14 different state attorney generals. Why? Because when people called, they signed up for this service, and when they would call in, they'd get nothing but a busy signal. Because AOL couldn't make money except by way overselling this. And one of the setbacks we had in our company was that we had made a televideo conferencing product. That was our first one. We had another setback that I'll tell people about if they want to come up and discuss it with me personally. But we had a 90% lock on this industry, but it was only $20 million. And that was the amount of money that they had, the venture capitalists had invested $10 million in the company. And they got double the number if there was an exit. Before anybody else, any of the founders or any of the engineers or employees got a nickel, the venture capitalists got double what they had put into it. So if they had sold us at that point, none of us would have gotten anything. Rob managed to beg them for one more chance. And we looked around for what we could do that took at least 75% of what we had developed already. And we came up with the idea that this infant industry called the internet offered a good opportunity. And we went around and we talked to almost all of the current, there weren't that many at the time, current the internet service providers. And they tweaked what we wanted to do, which was good, so we came back with a little bit different result, but we did get the answer that, yes, indeed, nobody was making a product for them that could make their companies profitable. And so we, instead of having one dome-shaped modem for each incoming call, we put together a box that was shaped like a pizza box, rack mountable. Each one of those boxes took 96 calls. That brought down the cost to the point where the internet service providers could make money. And we had, throughout the 90s until it was sold to Lucent, we had a 90% lock on the infrastructure and the hardware of the original internet. We also had the ability to make any piece of equipment talk to any other piece of equipment. And I don't know if you recall the early 90s, but no piece of equipment talked to any other piece of equipment at that time. It had to be the same model, even if it was the same make, the same manufacturer. If it was not the same model, it wouldn't talk to the other piece of equipment, and that was something else that would have destroyed the internet.
Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing. Now, as we begin to wrap up, I just want to ask each and every one of you guys, what valuable insight can you give to our audience here today, advice in leaving a legacy and what that means to you? Tom, we can start with you. Yeah.
Well, I did not inherit my company. My father was real bright in a lot of ways. I had to buy him out. My mother outlived him by 20 years. And she came to me once and said, I'm getting all my affairs in order. She was like 86, 87, and doing all the right things in preparation for that day. And she says, what would you like, Tom? We've got these houses all over the place, and there's money involved. I said, Mom, I'm more than successful. Just do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do. So I found out after she passed away, she gave everything to my nieces and nephews. And I couldn't believe when I heard that and read it. I said, okay, I hope they're happy. And then I talked to my children, and I haven't decided how I'm going to handle this yet. But I have talked to them, and I said, there's something is going to happen, but I want to talk to you about getting along with your siblings and not fighting over things. And I've gone through this with my family, my grandfather's family, when it's amazing what happens when somebody dies. And there's something there of value. So you have to, and I don't know the answer yet, myself personally. Only to make them aware of the fact that there's going to be certain stipulations to make sure they don't fight amongst themselves. And probably, and I hear it in this room, and I believe it too, you can't give them too much because it just does ruin people. So I'm in a state of flux on what to do.
Thank you, Tom, for sharing. Terry, how about you?
Well, I'm what they're calling these days a dino, dual income, no offspring, which enables us to focus on community rather than individual children and grandchildren. I would say that you need to do something that you're passionate about, and I would advise you to sit down and draw up what your values are for this legacy and juxtapose that against the no-nos. Because what I see with multi-generational foundations is that the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren start doing things that probably make the person that made the fortune be spinning in their graves. So, for example, I would say that our value is to promote a free market society, free enterprise. And juxtaposed against that is not using the funds for supporting socialism. One of my values, in line with the Hoover Institution, is individual freedom. So the money should be used always to promote that value and not to be used for government interference with individual freedom or authoritarian governments. We also, my husband and I, are patriots. We really believe in America and America's systems, America's institutions. And so I would not use the money to undermine those systems.
Thank you so much, Terry. Ken, give us some insights.
So a lot of what everybody covered. Create a great legacy, know what it is, live it with purpose. Do your yeses and know your nos, right? So when you have that guiding compass, that North Star, it's really pretty quick. Do it consistently. Share it with those you love. Share with them what you're doing. Don't impose that on them. aspire them to join you along the way on the journey. Those that want to will. Those that want to will and will become great at it. See if you're building those capacities in the people around you. If not, mentor them if you think mentoring and coaching is necessary, and keep growing people every day, whether it's your immediate family or loved ones or friends, right? I mean, I consider family all kinds of people who love and care about each other. Yes, blood's there in a lot of, we've got a big family defined that way, but just make a difference, right? And come together and work together with other people. This is a great world. We can make it an amazing place and a great country as well. I appreciate the USA chant in there. My middle brother was a U.S. congressman for a number of years. And coincidentally, when he was U.S. congressman, they balanced the federal budget for 4 years.
I know when that was.
For 4 years.
I know when that was. Yes.
And it's
remember that.
because he was willing to have a lot of tough things done to him and said no. That's one of my no's. We're not doing that. He's got books he's written on and everything else. But yeah, God bless the USA. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom, Teresa, Terry, and Ken. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
And I just want to open it up really quick. We're going to give at least 2 minutes for any Q&A. Oh, no, we're not. Okay. Just kidding. You will get to your chance to Q&A with them, though, at our breakout session. They will be at an individual table, and you will get to speak with them and open those discussions.